back to the Stick 'em Up podcast. Burundi, we got a whole bunch of things to talk about here. We had our special top 50 players currently in the NHL episode before. We had a bit of a Christmas break there, so we
Good little New Year's break.
Yeah, it's been nice, but we got a lot of news piling up that we're gonna have to get through here. There's so much to unpack here, so I'll give you the floor if you have any one of them that you want to start with.
Well, first of all, Happy New Year's to all of our listeners. Hope you guys had a good New Year's and a good start to the year of 2025. Bad start to the year of 2025 for Canada, Team Canada. Eliminated once again in the quarterfinal round of the World Juniors. Back-to-back years, losing both games within the final minute. 2 years ago, I believe, or a year ago, I believe it was 13 seconds left, and then last night 35 seconds or something like that. Something ridiculous again. So once again, Canada is out, and the rest of the hockey world's loving it. So let's just dive into what's going on here with Team Canada and everything.
I mean, yeah, and like there's a couple of things you can point at, but like the main thing really is they didn't bring the best team, and they could have. It's Canada at the World Juniors. Like there is so much talent that they left on the board when drafting this team, and they wanted to be tough, I guess. They wanted more experience, but if you just brought the better players, I very much doubt that they would be out of the tournament right now.
I completely agree with you. That's the biggest issue for him. First of all, is like I was saying to you prior to even us sitting down to record here. I personally believe, and I think a lot of others do, if you took a team of, if you made a team of all the players that Canada could have taken but didn't, I think they not only beat, but I think they demolish the team that Canada did bring. Like the amount of high-end talent that was left off the board is insane. And it was on clear display as, Canada struggled immensely to score goals throughout this tournament. And that ultimately was their downfall. And on top of that, very, very undisciplined team. I don't believe I saved it, but it was something ridiculous. Like they had, I think, like throughout the tournament this far, every team has played 5 games. It was like 40 more penalty minutes than the next closest team. It was just ridiculous how the team just couldn't score, undisciplined. It was awful. It was a really bad showing. Yeah.
So last night was when that final game happened for Canada. I was at the Utah versus Flames game. But they, every intermission, hell, even in the commercial breaks during the game, they would put the Team Canada game up on the Jumbotron, which was really cool. And I want to say, because my wife was beside me and she had the stats up, she kept checking them. And I want to say Canada had, I think it was 29 penalty minutes after the first period. In an
I will say one was a 5 in a game, which to me personally, not just because I'm cheering for Canada, I think even if you're not a Team Canada, even if you cheer for, whatever other country, if you're from whatever other country, if you're a hockey fan, I think you can kind of collectively agree that it wasn't worth a 5 in a game. Not only because they called it knee on knee, it really wasn't. It was more like it was really kind of thigh on thigh. So you can call 2 for tripping. The Czech player actually did sell it pretty well. I saw a picture of him kind of smiling on the ice once he kind of realized that the call was definitely going to go in his favor after kind of selling it. Did return to the game.
There were 3 kneeing penalties that game, I think. And I did see that the other team, was it Czechia?
Yeah.
They actually got a diving penalty at one point one guy on our team took a slashing, and a Czechia player took a diving penalty. So like there was actually at least one moment where they got caught for that, but man, they took so many penalties and throughout the entire tournament. And actually before the last game, Dave Cameron, the head coach for the Canadian World Junior team, was asked how he's going to address the discipline issue because it was at that point clear it was a problem. I believe after 3 games that out of the 5 they played, they still had not been scored on 5-on-5. They had lost 1 or 2 games, and all goals against had been power play
goals. Through the first 4 games. So they shut out Finland. The crazy upset loss to Latvia, which full respect to Latvia and especially their goalie. Yeah. I mean, Canada, I think, deserved to win the game just by how much they outshot Latvia. But you know what? Latvia found a way to win. They got the goaltending when they need it, and they scored the big goals when they need it. And Canada had numerous opportunities to score in overtime. A lot of players on the ice were selfish and trying to, be like Bedard and do it upon themselves and score the big goal. No one on this team is as skilled as Bedard. Gavin McKenna might be next year, but wasn't this year. And you had so many shootout opportunities and a lot of horrendous attempts by multiple players. So they allowed 2 power play goals in that game to Latvia. They shut out Germany. So you've only allowed 2 goals in 3 games, 2 power play goals against. And then they play the Americans that was on New Year's Eve. They lost 4-1. Canada's only goal came on the power play, so they didn't score 5-on-5. The Americans, their first 3 goals were all power play goals, and their 4th goal was an empty netter. So really playing 5-on-5 hockey with goalies in the net, Canada didn't allow a goal through the round robin, a 5-on-5 goal against.
To be out this early is insane for that.
It's pretty impressive in that stat, but then you're going to play Czechia, and it's like, all right, so Canada's mindset is basically at this point, we got to win 2-1, 1-0, is basically what it kind of comes down to. And, to let, what was the first goal? They allowed a goal in 43 seconds, and then they were down 3-1 after the first, and it's like, well, now what? You're now asking a team that has struggled immensely to score goals in this tournament to now go out and come back from down 3-1, which did tied up 3-3, and ultimately allowing another power play goal against to lose that game. So 5-on-5, they were a good defensive team. On the penalty kill, they were probably the worst in the tournament. I don't have the exact stats, but I'm pretty confident worst penalty kill in the tournament. So when you're taking that many penalties and you're putting yourself on the penalty kill, yeah, you probably ain't going to win.
Yeah, it's just absolutely brutal. They did not pick the best players. We'll get into a second in some of the major snubs on this team looking back. But so, like I said, the media asked Dave Cameron, the coach, how he's going to address it. It was either after game 3 or 4. And this is a direct quote. He said, can't. I can't address it. They know it. They know the penalties are penalties. They just have to be better at not taking penalties. So now that he has said that, there's 2 options. There's 2 options here. And I genuinely want you to say which one it is, Bruni, because I don't think there's another way around it. Either he is wrong and he doesn't know how to properly coach a team, and he doesn't even know what the coach is there for, because one of the big things is getting these young guys to be disciplined. So option 1 is he's wrong. Or option 2, in my opinion, the worst option, he's right, and he is so inept as a coach that he is correct in that he can't fix the problem. Because there's lots of coaches that can. So I don't know if it's because he doesn't know what to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, it's just mind-blowing that he could go out there and say, I can't do it. They have to do it. My brother in Christ, you are brought in to represent Canada as one of the best coaches, and you're saying you just can't get through to these guys? You should never be brought back.
I personally believe he was just checked out No pun intended there, but I really do believe he just couldn't be bothered to give a shit about this tournament as a whole. Because, after losing last night, and being eliminated from the tournament, so after Canada lost to Latvia, they had a day off the next day and they canceled the team's practice. They I can't remember when the second one was, but they canceled another practice. And then the morning before their game against Czechia, so yesterday, they once again canceled their practice and did not hold a practice. So when the team was losing games that they should have won, there was no practice, no accountability there. And before games, like they just went through the tournament and just played games. It was like a minor hockey tournament for them. No practice, just all games. And when Dave Cameron was asked about this, of why was there no why were practices being canceled? Why was there no even just light morning skate before the quarterfinals? Dave Cameron just said, because we're exhausted and there's no system for tired hockey players. So again, to me, that just screams a coach that couldn't care to be involved with the team, couldn't care to do anything. It was,
He's not even going to try.
let's just show up, let's play hockey games, and let's try and win. But let's not actually try and work as a team towards anything. When your power play was dog shit, why didn't you just even do a 30-minute practice and say, all right, let's just work on a new power play. Let's work on our penalty kill. Let's just focus on special teams. Couldn't even do that. Like,
nothing. Not even pucks just on the goalie. Just keep them fresh. Nothing.
Yeah.
Like there's being a bad coach, and then there's being a hockey terrorist. Like, this guy absolutely tanked it for him. Like, they definitely could have had a better team coming in, but I think a better coach could have gotten them at least one more win out of the games they did play. They were right in that quarterfinal game there until the last minute when Czechia scored to take the lead. So that just absolutely brutal from him. It's too bad the players couldn't make up for that lack of it. But honestly, I don't. You know what? Dave Cameron doesn't deserve to get a medal or anything. So you know what?
Absolutely not. And
good for him getting knocked out.
Yeah, again, like you said it perfectly. Canada could have had a much better team on ice by the players they chose. Everybody knows that. But the coach, I think, really did also fail the players. Like, again, a lot of the onus of, Canada being out is on the players, because it's up to them to go out and execute, especially, losing some of these games that, probably should have won. But the coach didn't do them any favors, if it feels like, in any way to help them to instill some kind of confidence or rally the troops in any kind of way, which is very unfortunate. And someone, I don't know who it was, but they brought up a great point of, you see all these different countries in these tournaments, the U, like the World Juniors, what is it, the U17 tournament or something that takes place every year. A lot of those countries deploy the same coach for those tournaments every year. Like, that's like their thing. Yeah. So I don't get why Canada doesn't maybe take their out of, look at, you've got so many guys you could look through between the WHL, the O, the Q, Canadian coaches that are maybe coaching overseas or something. Like, try and find a coach and be like, hey, we want to bring you on with Hockey Canada. Like, if you still want to keep, your job where you're at, fine. But like, when these tournaments are going on, we want you to be our guy, and we want you to start creating a system that this team is going to run with, and just kind of let that coach take the reins and be the guy every year. I think it could do wonders for him, because I think just where it's at right now, it's awful, and I would like to see something change, especially with the coaching and then the player selection. Like, every other country's bringing all their best top players. Why does Canada refuse to? Why do they think that they're so above every other country to the degree where they're like, we can leave so many good players home, and we'll bring some middle of the pack guys and get it done? Like, it's kind of feels like an arrogance thing, and maybe these back-to-back losses here in the quarterfinals will kickstart how Canada's going through this process next year, because especially on home soil, to put
It's
up a
just
performance
brutal.
like this is just terrible.
And like, I don't get me wrong, I love a player like Braden Yeager, but he should not be the best player on a Canadian World Junior team.
Well, and I don't. Again, I agree with you. Like the guy, I don't even think he was.
Like, I think he was right up there. I think he was one of their
He,
top
he was
players. And
definitely one
I don't
one
think he
of,
should.
but
I don't think he should be. Like, they just left so many guys. At this point, we should probably start listing names because like Beckett Seneca should have been on that team. Michael Misa should have been on that team. Like,
worth noting, two guys that play in the OHL, and I don't know how big Canada's roster is in its entirety. I think around like 22, 23 players or something. And you're like 16 OHL guys. And I think they had two or three WHL guys or something. Like they just picked all the guys from the OHL in the area and said, "This is our team," and they didn't even pick the best OHL guys
and
to
like,
make it even worse.
it's so brutal. Like, I know who was the defenseman who got injured and was actually out for the most of the
Matthew Schaefer, which is a big loss because was supposed to be Canada's best defenseman in the tournament too.
And from then on out, it was mostly Oliver Bonk was kind of their number one defenseman. You know, they rolled a lot of them, but he was kind of their main guy to look at. Yakimchuk helps you more than Bonk does in that tournament, I think.
Zane Perrick does.
Zane Perrick helps you way more. Like, they just had so many, you just watch these guys and you're like, fuck, how do they not make the team? They're so good. They even went out and afterwards they like re-brought in Seneca and I think one other guy, I'm not sure who. And we're like, actually, we are going to send you a late invitation. We'll see if you get on. And then they cut both of them like the next day. Somehow, like in between that moment, Beckett Seneca had like a 4-goal, like 6-point night.
Yeah.
Like somewhere in there in the WHL, and they were still just like, you're not good enough. We're taking these other guys. And it's such a weird thing with Dave Cameron that he clearly just hates playing the young guys too much. He's one of those, he loves the veteran presence or whatever. And like, I get all that, but like, you know, they even had Gavin McKenna serve the 10-minute misconduct in that final game for the kneeing. Like he was even like, yeah, he's good and all, but let's have him sit for 10 minutes while we do other stuff. Like, dude, it shouldn't be that hard to just put out the best team.
It really, and it shows how, because I think I again, I don't know if it's true, but I really do think the London Knights have a lot of pull with this Team Canada, because like just so many, I mean, London Knights are a good team, but you load up with so many London Knights players, and then it's very clear that like they're getting the top power play spots. But what so just blows my mind is, again, London Knights, very good team. On their top power play, as far as I know, it sounds like Sam Dickinson runs the point up on the blue line, so kind of the quarterback of the power play, and then Oliver Bonk is down in the bumper. Start of the World Juniors, they had Dickinson back on the second unit on the blue line. They had Bonk on the first unit up on the blue line. So it's like, if you're gonna like just go with your London Knights guys, go with what they at least has been working for them. And then sure enough, game 3 against Germany, they switch it up. Dickinson's on the top quarterback spot on the top power play. They move Bonk down to the bumper, and sure enough, boom, they Bonk gets a goal, being in his spot there. Like it worked. So it's just weird when you take guys and you're like, all right, you know, we want to have you guys play together, but we're going to start putting you then in different positions. Like, if you want to roll with your London Knights boys, at least put them in positions for them to succeed. Yeah, at least put them where they're comfortable and they're used to playing with each other.
Yeah, like we've even seen that, like examples of that work before. You know, notoriously an incredible line: Patrice Bergeron, Brad Marchand, and Sidney Crosby. Like, should all of those guys have been on that top line? Maybe, maybe not. But did it work because one of them's frickin' Sidney Crosby and the other two know how to play with each other? Yeah. Like, if they drafted Brandon Hagel and Anthony Cirelli, I bet the house that they're going to play together, because why would you bring them if you're going to not, right? Like,
Yeah.
you,
Even the same with the Americans. Last year you had the kid line, the guys who've been playing for years together. You had Gabe Pro, Ryan Leonard, and Will Smith. They played together at Boston College on a line. They go to the World Juniors. They're like, you know what? This is a working system you guys have. We're not messing with it. Do your thing. You're on a line together. And they all played really well. Will Smith now goes off to the NHL. Who comes in to take his spot? James Higgins goes to Boston College, plays on the top line now with Pro and Leonard. They go to the World Juniors together. Guess what? Running it back, you three together. And they've been lighting it up almost every game for the Americans. Like, if you're going to roll with your guys and be like, you're going to carry, at least put them where they succeed. Don't start trying to be like, we're going to keep you good, but I'm going to try and mix it up a bit because I'm a coaching guru apparently or something like that. But
like
it's just awful. And again, I'm excited to see who wins this tournament because I think there's still a lot of great teams. Like I think Finland's heating up. I think Czechia, you know what, they can show they can be a force when needed. Sweden and the Americans are like they're always good. What are the matchups here actually taking place tomorrow? Sweden versus Finland, and then the United States versus Czechia. So most likely we're just going to be getting the United States against Sweden again, but I'm not fully counting out Finland and Czechia. Like they could surprise people and win these games. Like they very well could.
Yeah, they definitely could. And we don't need to talk too much more on it because there's not much to be said. Like they lost, it's over. We know exactly why, but I did find here that they took a total of 113 penalty minutes.
113, yeah, and the next closest was 74, I believe, which was Kazakhstan.
That's like an extra like 50% of Kazakhstan's numbers. Like,
yeah,
over second place in the league, not the average. Like that's over 5 games. That's so stupid. Like it really shouldn't be that difficult to get your guys like anything. Hell, I'd even take a incredibly hard ass approach of like, if you take a penalty, you're not playing for the rest of the game. Like everybody's smarting up. Something.
Okay, I got the numbers here. So and then after this we can wrap and we can go back to some NHL stuff here. So again, every team 5 games played in the World Juniors. Canada 113 penalty minutes. That's an average of 22 minutes and 36 seconds of penalty minutes per game. Second was Kazakhstan, down to 79. Czechia 77, Finland 65, United States 50, Switzerland 48, Latvia 44, Sweden 38, Germany 34, Slovakia 24. Canada has 113 to 24. Slovakia 6 minutes and 48 seconds of penalty minutes against per game. Canada's like, what is that? That's over tripled.
Well, you said it was what, 22 and a half minutes per game?
Basically 22 and a half, yeah.
That's over a third of the entire game, of every game. Like, that would be an outlier for a single game, less alone an average over 5. Like, that is ludicrous.
Yeah, you're going into a game basically, again, I know offsetting penalties, 5-minute major, whatnot, but going into the average game, you're going in being like, all right, we're going to spend an entire period shorthanded, basically. And then a little bit more sprinkled on top, just to
And I guess
just
that's
to
what
create a
happens
little bit more fun.
That happens when you purposefully go out of your way to, pick these guys that are, heavy hitters, harder grinder almost type players, power forwards, like that. Yeah, just no shade to them, but there's better picks for the team. Tanner Howe, Matthew Cataford, Ethan Gauthier, Cole Beaudoin, like probably a lot of those guys. Hell, I would say all of those guys probably shouldn't have been on this team. But
and again, not because they're not like, they are good players in their own right. It's just when you look at the top end talent that was left off the board.
Yeah, the top players of the top talented country for young hockey players. Like, it's a high bar.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's just really bad. they should get a new coach next year. There should be a new team or GM or whoever picks it. There should be a new person picking. Like, yeah, Hockey Canada needs a big overhaul over there.
I completely agree.
But
going back to the NHL, where do you want to dive into?
Let's dive into this one's a bit of a quicker one after that long discussion. But Victor Hedman is now first all time in games played for the Tampa Bay Lightning franchise with 1,084 games, passing Steven Stamkos, who had 1,082. I believe, Hedman's now 2 ahead with the game last night. Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot to say on that. Just congrats to the big Swede. Just been an anchor for 15 years at this point.
Yeah, and still going strong. Strong.
Yeah, went out of the game against the Sharks late yesterday. Took a clearing attempt from the Sharks up in the ear. Looked kind of nasty. So hopefully he's doing all right. You know, he got up really quick, but obviously he got the hell off the ice. So
yeah. But, never like to see anything like that happen, but haven't heard anything of him being out long term. So I believe he's gonna be okay by the sounds of it.
Yeah. We got a couple things that are quicker and a couple things that might be another long conversation. So do you want to hit one of the quick ones or another long talk?
I got kind of a quick one here. I didn't put it in here, but I think it's worth noting. I can't even call him mini Matt Rempe yet, but like kind of making his way there. Zachary Leroux, the Nashville Predators, in his rookie season, first suspension ever in the show in the NHL, was suspended for 3 games after delivering a slew foot to Jared Spurgeon, the Minnesota Wild. So this is the suspension history of Zachary Leroux so far. And again, he is 21 years old. He played 4 seasons in the Q. He played 1 full season in the AHL, and now he's up to the NHL. So this is over 6 seasons. In the Q, he got, and again, you know, with the Q, their suspensions are a lot more harsher there, as it would be in the WHL or the OHL, in my opinion. But in the Q, got a 3-game suspension for unsportsmanlike. Got a 3-game suspension for high sticking. Got a 2-game suspension for unsportsmanlike. Got a 4-game suspension for a fighting violation. He got a 4-game suspension for high sticking, a 6-game suspension for high sticking, a 1-game suspension for being the aggressor in a fight. I don't fully know what this one is, but he got a 3-game suspension for a staged fight. Got a 10-game suspension for a fan altercation. In the AHL last year, he was suspended.
That was a bad one. If anyone remembers that one was, that's where he pushed his stick like between the bars or like between the glass or something. He like hit a guy in the face. Like that one was. That's where a lot of people recognize this guy's name from, honestly. Yeah.
And then last year in the AHL, got suspended 2 games for a sucker punch, 1 game for a fight, and then now in the NHL has been suspended 3 games for a slew foot. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 suspensions in the last 6 years across 3 different leagues. The game totals, you can do the math. It's well over 25. It's just like what?
And that was a bad.
What's this guy doing? Like, yeah, like what's this guy doing at this point? Like,
how do you get suspended? What was it, 2 or 3 times for unsportsmanlike? What the hell is he doing to get multi-game suspensions for unsportsmanlike?
I'm gonna do some digging. I want to find out what this staged fight 3-game suspension is. I've never seen anything like that. Again, it is the Q.
I wonder if that's since you're not allowed to fight in the Q. Like he had one of the suspensions in there was for fighting, just for fighting. So I wonder if it's like him and another guy before the game were like, let's fight, and like I wonder if there's just a different suspension for fighting and like kind of like being like, hey, we're gonna fight later.
Yeah, maybe,
which is a bit different than instigating. You know, it's kind of like how when they first introduced the rule of you can't take your helmet off during fights. There was that one infamous fight where both guys go over and gently knock the helmet off of each other so that they can fight like they used to. But
yeah.
maybe it's a little something to avoid situations like that, because they do want to get fighting out of the QMJHL over there.
We can move on. Just wanted to highlight that because that's
this guy
pretty wild for a guy that's only 21 to have that many suspensions and that many of a high count already across his young career. And for his first suspension in the NHL to already get slapped with 3 games, like
good.
The Department of Player Safety, you're 21 years old in your rookie season, and you're already on the bad side of the Department of Player Safety, which is apparently very hard to do.
He's one of those guys that is so frankly stupid out there that a lot of the guys running the Department of Player Safety do want to keep the game. I mean, the guy who runs it literally sells hats and shirts that say "Make hockey violent again," if that tells you about their MO. They want to keep the game heavy and not necessarily dirty all the time, but they don't want that to go away.
They want it to be still a hard physical game, but they want to just reduce injury
sport
type of thing. Yeah.
But I can see them looking at a guy like Zachary LaRue and going, this guy is going to make so many headlines that make us look bad that we need to keep him away from it. I would not, they love a guy like Rempe. I think this is the other side of the coin that's still on, kind of how they play the game. Of they don't like how he's doing because he's going to make headlines for the wrong reasons. Not that everything that Rempe's doing is good, but I think they are more favorable for him than
I think so.
LaRue, yeah. And Spurgeon's out. Don't know how long. Doesn't look very good. So
it was a big loss for Minnesota too. So.
I wouldn't have hated a larger suspension, even though it's his first one in the NHL. Anything you need to know about this guy, go check out a video of him getting that 10-game suspension for altercation with a fan. There's a person who paid to be at a game, and I think they're giving him the business pretty good or something, but so has every NHL player. You play hockey in front of a paying crowd, they're gonna freaking give you the business. And
that's
just sticks this guy in the face. Geez, he got a couple high sticking suspensions on the ice, and then he somehow got one on the way out.
It's not a good look. It's not a good look.
He doesn't have a ton going on between his ears.
Yeah, good hockey player though. And that's the unfortunate part for Nashville is a player that if he can just keep his head on straight and focus on playing the game, can be a good and effective player. But if you're having to worry every night about what's he going to do now, when's the next suspension come, when's he going to take another 5 in a game, and it's not needed, and it's just So hopefully he can get his shit figured out, and hopefully this is a start on him just focusing on playing the game. Because again, when he plays the game, good effective player, you don't need all this dumb shit that it's just not needed. It's not needed, not good. But just wanted to highlight that because I was like, damn.
Oh yeah, great.
Dude loves getting suspended.
Yeah, I forgot about that, but that is a big talking point. But I guess moving on, let's crack open one of these other ones. Do you want to talk about the Stars, or do you want to talk about the Canucks?
Let's go to Dallas. Let's go to Dallas. Do a little detour to Dallas.
Okay, so I've got a decent little bit here. The main part is that the Dallas Stars were fined $100,000 by the NHL for violating the collective bargaining agreement. They were fined for this because they found out that Dallas held a very heavy, quotation marks here, optional practice, I believe I want to say it was on December 26th or December 24th. During this
Boxing Day,
Boxing Day, to the 26th, where there's, I think, a 3 or 4 day period where you're not allowed practices at all.
Yeah, and the 24th, 25th, 26th.
Have you heard about this? Have you seen any of the coaches, Pierre DeBoer's comments on this or anything, Brundy?
No, not really.
So
kind of vaguely, but nothing that really stuck me where I'm like, oh yeah, I remember reading that type of thing.
So I will say this entire situation is exactly to a T the reason this rule exists. And by the way, the league didn't know that this happened until he bragged about it in a press conference. They didn't know until he said that they did it. So he was asked in the press conference later on what should it matter? Basically, should it matter if the practice was optional? And so he said, this was his direct quote. I was at the rink yesterday. We had an optional, and of course all the young guys all showed up for the optionals, which they're supposed to do. But as I started walking in, up front you've got Bork back, you got Stankoven, Wyatt Johnson, still a young guy, list a couple other guys. We've incorporated a lot of the young guys in this lineup over the past few years. Of course, all the young guys are going to show up, which they're supposed to do. That quote right there tells it all for me. The young guys show up, which they're supposed to do. That's only optional in name. This is clearly not an optional thing. It's the same way as, it's optional to go to this practice. It's also optional if you're a healthy scratch for 60 games in a row.
I get what you're saying. I'm trying to think of the right way to word it. I understand, both sides. Like I get where you're coming from, but I also get the sign of being like, he's not saying like it's necessarily like mandatory for him. I think it's kind of one of those things in like, you see with every team with the optionals, it's always kind of the young guys that are trying to, go out there and continue working on their skills, trying to, impress the coach a bit, show their work ethic and kind of like show that like they're committed to, being here and getting better and playing as opposed to, if like you basically you're more on the coach's good side if you're kind of a young guy, not even a rookie, just a younger player that shows up to an optionals as opposed to a younger player that just doesn't go to them type of thing. Again, like it very well could be kind of like, yeah, like it's kind of instilled amongst the young players. Like when it's optional, like you're expected to be there. If you're a veteran, it's optional for you. So again, I don't fully know. Don't follow the Dallas Stars that closely. I'm not in the locker room. I'm not,
and I'm sure
best buddies with Pete, but
I'm sure they do.
It is kind of a weird way to word it, though. Yeah, I will give that.
The fact that he says that, like, that'll make sense for the rest of the year. But there's like 3 or 4 days only when you're not allowed to have practices for this reason, because they know that, they say, oh yeah, it's optional. That means that if you're a young guy and you don't go, they're going to be like, okay, you don't care as much. Like, it's good for the guys who go, but it's also very negative for the guys who don't.
Exactly.
That's the exact reason they don't allow mandatory or optional practices. You're not supposed to be allowed to go to your team's facilities during that blackout period. Mm-hmm. So the fact that they had this optional practice at all, and then the fact that on top of that, he went out there and, he named all, like I was doing there, he named all the guys that went. Like, he's like, look at these guys. Like, I'm proud of these guys. He's probably pissed at any young guys who didn't go to that practice, which is messed up. And
I don't know about that.
I
don't fully know about that he'd be necessarily pissed at him, but it is kind of weird though, to like kind of brag about like who did go.
In my opinion, this is bad enough that they should have been fined probably a first-round pick. They should have had to give up some sort of draft capital.
I agree, draft capital, like a fine. Who gives a shit? Like the team's paying for that. Yeah. Like it's not coming out of the coaches or players' pockets. First-round pick, I don't know. I'd be okay with maybe like a second or something. I think a first is like for the really extreme stuff type of thing. Like the. What the Coyotes did, what Ottawa did, type of thing. But yeah,
that's the thing, though. I don't
tell them, no, yeah, you got to give up a second.
This is way worse than what Ottawa did.
No,
Ottawa, without no malice, they forgot to send in, what was it?
But that's the thing. Did they forget or did they choose not to?
What you think they were purposefully like, we're going to get them on when they try and trade him later? That benefits nobody for them.
I mean, I don't fully know, but again, the point is, though, whether they meant to or not, they still did it, right?
But that's the thing. They know. You're telling me nobody in the Dallas Stars organization knows you're not allowed to have practices? This happened 110% with the thought of the NHL won't allow it. we're going to do it anyway. Every
I
bone in
would
their
agree,
body
yeah.
said we're doing it on purpose against the rules, and whether they just want to get their guys reps, fine. But this is the one time. There's like 360 days a year where you can do that, and they did it in this time. You can't do that. It's mostly for me because it's an on purpose thing and not accidental.
I
Whereas
agree on that.
I
It's
view
more
Ottawa's as it's got to be 90%. I assume accidental. It could have been on purpose, but I don't see a way that they gain anything from doing that to Vegas.
no, but the reason why I'm like it shouldn't be the same penalties because what Dallas did it doesn't hinder or hurt other teams. But what Ottawa did it hurt Vegas. So that's why I'm like again I totally agree it should be you should have to lose some kind of draft capital as opposed to a meaningless fine. But it's more so the fact that the act like what the Dallas Stars did, it doesn't hurt other teams. Whereas what Ottawa did, again, whether it was accidental or on purpose, that's irrelevant in this argument here. But they actively hurt Vegas by what happened.
I see that argument, but I
still think I honestly do think even a first what Ottawa did, I still think a first is actually kind of crazy. Because again, what the Coyotes did, I think is still above both of them.
I think it probably
but again,
for me it goes Coyotes, Stars, Ottawa personally. But yeah, the Coyotes one was definitely the worst.
And then mine's Coyotes, Ottawa Stars. Again, I'm on the boat that I think they definitely should have to give up some kind of draft capital though.
Making the owner pay money that this guy wipes his ass with $100,000 check. Yeah. He owns an NHL franchise.
Literally, the next game they play, they're gonna make up a good majority of that back, especially with all the holiday sales. Like, yeah, $100K really doesn't matter to them.
It's not great for It's just not a good look. I just don't like these teams being like, oh, we can just. It really just screams like old boys club. We can go around, we can do what we want, and you know what. These young guys, they're going to think, oh, maybe I could or couldn't go, but they're going to really want to go because we're telling them you should probably be there. Like it, I don't like when these teams are run like a little bit closer to a mafia than a team where you're all working together.
I think mafia might be a bit of stretch, but I do get what you're saying though. I do get what you're saying. It is kind of weird that why do they feel like they're a bar above where they're like we're allowed to do this, we're gonna do this type of thing when it's like just let your guys rest, just let them enjoy 3 days off in the middle of the season to just hang out with family and friends. Like it is weird. I'm not a fan of it, and again they should have had to give up some kind of draft capital as opposed to a fine. That's fines. They don't solve anything. It's just way for the league to make. Actually, I don't even know what the fines necessarily go to. It always seems to be different cases, but
the NHL Player Association generally.
Oh, okay.
The way they got a fine and them being a Sun Belt American team just screamed like, I swear if this happened to the Flames, I feel like they'd be paying it first.
I don't think so.
I do think this is one that's close enough that like it feels like if it happened to a Canadian team, they're probably paying some sort of draft capital. We do see a bit of a trend of
I don't think
things
so.
going the way of the American teams.
I don't think so. I think they would have, because that way you set the precedent, right? Like if the Flames did it, or any Canadian team did it, and were fined a first, they wouldn't immediately now be like, oh, now an American team's done it, we're not going to do that, because like the uproar would be insane. So like the precedent is now set that like if teams do this, at least under this CBA, under the next one, they very well might change it now that this has happened. Like they've kind of set the precedent. Like even if a Canadian team does it now, they're only going to get fined $100,000, because again the uproar and the outcry would be insane if they had to give up a first or something. They're like, well, why are you favoring this team over this team? So I mean, again, I think they've set the precedent for it now. It probably will change now that there's an actual example of it. When the next CBA is. I don't, but I know you're on top of
The next CBA,
of
I believe, is being bartered for. I want to say it's the 2026 off season.
Okay, so year and a half, give or take.
It's set to expire. Yeah, so they'll have to in the 2026 off season. They'll have to renegotiate it because it expires on September 15th of 2026.
Okay, so yeah, in a year and a half. So I'd be curious to see if there's maybe some outlining in it for if you do something like this, harsher penalties, or even just stating what the penalty will be, and
make a better
make it
system
clear
for who decides it, right? Because like it's just
Yeah.
the NHL fined them this much. Was that a panel of 100 people who know a lot about hockey? Was it just Gary Bettman? We don't know. It's just
exactly right.
The NHL fined them that much, like so. It's hard. Maybe they could hash that out, but yeah,
I would like that. I think that would be good. Just a little bit more transparency, right?
Yeah.
Save everybody from always asking questions or pointing fingers when we can all be like, nope, we know this is who it is and whatnot, and then yeah. But we can move on from the Dallas Stars. We got a lot of Canadian news here coming from Canada teams. Where do you want to go here?
Do you want to talk about Matthews? I haven't seen too much. I don't know if you have too much more than what we have written down in the Discord.
Yeah, no. What we got here is pretty much what it is. Austin Matthews is still out with an upper body injury. Was recently asked about, will he be able to shake this injury off this season and kind of get back to 100%? And his response was pretty short and simple. It's just, I don't know. I hope so. Do we know the full degree to what he's?
No.
Kind of, I was going to say, it's always just upper body injury. So we don't exactly know what he's going on with. Could be, numerous things. So hard to say. Like, obviously, if he's still kind of unsure at this point with how much time he's missed and if he's going to be able to shake it, I'm assuming it's something that's not good or something that, really might just have to be, you need an extensive amount of time off to kind of work through it, and getting back in the game, getting in the contact physicality will just re-aggravate it. Really not good news for Toronto when, Toronto's in kind of one of those positions where it's like, this is a big year to try and, again, with Toronto, it's always a big year for them to try and win or get out of the first round again. But especially this year, when you bring in all this defensive help, you're getting really solid goaltending. Marner and Tavares are on the last year of their deals. So you've kind of got uncertainty about, if both of them will be back next year, and if not, if only one of them. To lose a guy like Matthews and, even if he can come back, not having him at 100% or even maybe 75%, that's tough. That's a tough spot for Toronto to be in. It's not good. It's not good for the team, not good for Matthews, just really shitty all around.
Like, yeah, they need to figure out how to get Matthews fully healthy, like plain and simple. Yeah. We already know that the regular season, it really doesn't matter in Toronto. It's make the playoffs. That's it. At this point, I'm not even sure if they care too much about seeding. Like, it's about making the playoffs. I
mean, they would love home ice, obviously, but I mean, based on Matthews' response, like if you're, Tree Living or Brube, do you kind of just talk to her and be like, you know what? Do we just tell Matthews, hey, you're going on LTIR for the rest of the regular season. We're going to take this bunch of cap space now. We're going to add, and you take, the next 4 months off and just get 100% for the playoffs. Right? Because if Matthews all of a sudden middle of January or end of January is like, I'm feeling good, I'm ready, I'm good to go, he goes out there and gets injured, or he says, come the Four Nations, hey, I'm ready, I want to play in the Four Nations. He goes out there and gets injured, like, and then he's really banged up and he's done. It's like, Well, now you're really in trouble.
I do think it's public enough knowledge that it's not bad enough. Like, I don't think they could get away with putting him on LTIR right now for the end of the season, but because I think they said, he'll be out. I think their first on this most recent injury, they've said the next 4 games or something.
But it keeps getting delayed. At first, it was 2 games. He was expected to miss 2. Then he missed the next 2, and then it's like, all right, he's going to miss another 4. It's like,
yeah,
it's one of those where it just keeps getting pushed back. It's like, all right, it's they made it sound minor, but now it's like it sounds like it could be kind of serious. Like the fact that it just keeps getting pushed back more and more. Which would be tough for Matthews because LTIR does mean like, he can't play in the 4 nations. Like you can't just be like, oh, he's activated off IR. He goes and plays it. It's like, all right, he's back on IR. Like, so maybe that's a conversation they got to have with Matthews and be like, what are we doing here? Kind of figure out the severity and then, and if you're Matthews, you have to put the Leafs above the 4 nations. Like I know he's one of those guys, especially that's really looking forward to this tournament. But if need be, you got to.
How often are they doing the 4 nations? Actually,
I'm not sure.
Is it every second year, maybe?
Well, this is the first that they're doing it. I'm hoping they go back to the. Well, and I know it's in the works. Going back to doing the World Cup of hockey. I know there's a lot of push to get that going again. And I think this is kind of a little icebreaker to kind of get the ball rolling on it. And if it is the World Cup of hockey, you, again, which I think the perfect timeline is you do it every 4 years, but you have it on the schedule of the Summer Olympics. So every 2 years, you're either getting the World Cup or you're getting Olympics.
Right.
And I liked when they did it in September. When they did it before the NHL season started, and they didn't have it as kind of this thing in the middle.
That would be better.
So I don't know what the plan is for the 4 nations. I think it's, again, for me personally, I think it is kind of just to get the ball rolling on.
I was going to say, I thought they had
getting the World Cup of hockey.
Up, but it doesn't look like it with a Google search here. So,
but especially with the Olympics coming up, the following year now, 2026. Like if you're Matthews, you just got to sit it out and be like, it sucks. It's tough not playing in it. But you got to put the Leafs first. You got to put your team first, especially now that you're the captain. Like, it would be super shitty, but again, and I'm sure every player that's playing in it feels the same way. Push comes to shove, you put your NHL team first.
100. They need Matthews full and ready for the playoffs, and if that means he stays out till February, then he should do it. Like, he needs to get healthy completely before the playoffs because he's having trouble staying healthy in the regular season, and it's a lot heavier hitting in the playoffs.
A lot.
So he
can break your sternum in the playoffs.
Yeah, so I applaud the Leafs for not saying what his injury is. There's so many people who want to know, and and I've seen a couple teams now are doing this a lot more this season particularly. They're, just an upper body injury. We're not saying it's wrist. We're not saying it's head. None of that. It's upper or lower body. And you know what? I've seen some teams, like, some guys have been injured for, like, week to week, and it's just they're out with an injury. They're not even saying upper or lower anymore.
They just say undisclosed.
Yeah, because they don't want anybody even attempting to target it. We saw a couple years ago in the playoffs, like, who was it? Draisaitl had the wrist injury, and then Pietrangelo went over and hacked him in the hand. Like,
yeah, well, lots of guys were, but the Pietrangelo one especially, yeah. A lot of guys were just going. Yeah, a lot of guys were, yeah.
Like, they, you like to think they wouldn't do it, but they want to win the cup really freaking bad. So,
actually, I think with Draisaitl, I think that's when it was his ankle.
I thought it might be the ankle.
Yeah, I think it was ankle actually, because a lot of guys were just hacking at his legs and his ankles a lot. Might have been both, honestly. I don't know. That guy's
I actually think it
playoff warrior. He's injured every playoffs. It feels like.
Yeah, I think the Pietrangelo one was his wrist, but I think it was either the year before or the year after that he had the really bad leg injury where he basically he played at like 2 points per game on a freaking single leg.
Yeah,
but Yeah, I like that a lot of teams are keeping them more questionable. You can't target Matthews' injury as easily.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, hopefully he gets healthy because it does suck having the best goal scorer in the league not at full capacity, right? They're
Yeah.
not playing half the time.
Yeah, it's not good for the Leafs, not good for Matthews, not good for the league. Like it's just shitty all around. So hopefully he's getting better, and hopefully he can get back out on the ice sooner rather than later.
And another guy that for a very brief time, people were saying might be the best player in the NHL, Jonathan Toews, who is eyeing an NHL return sometime soon. Um, he's been very vocal in the last few weeks about he's back. He was over in I want to say it was in India. He was doing a lot of Eastern medicine stuff, trying to get himself right and uh, whatever it was, it sounds like it worked. It sounds like he's feeling a lot better and he wants to get back into the NHL. Um,
Hmm.
uh, One thing I do want to ask right out the gate, because of course it's one of the main things people would think of him making a return. Uh, do you think Chicago wants him?
I mean, I'm sure they would love him
Okay.
if they got the opportunity for him to come back. I think they would love to have a guy like Taves, come back and just be a leader to a lot of their young guys, be a great mentor. I think it's a little bit tough because, like, obviously you didn't resign him. You have a new captain now, so I think that bridge is kind of just done. Like, it'd be kind of weird to bring him back, but then it's like, you've already kind of moved on, right? And especially like if I'm Taves and coming back, I think you're, especially because he's 36 now. I think if you're Taves and you're coming back, it's to probably go play for a contender. Like Chicago's probably still 2 or 3 years away. So by then he's kind of like his career is pretty much right near the end. So I think if he comes back, I think it's to go to a contender. And the team I would love to see him go to the most, the Winnipeg Jets, hometown for Jonathan Taves.
Interesting.
I think he could be. Don't exactly know what the where he'd be at in his game at this point now, especially like we were talking about it. He did take that 1 year off in the 2021 season. Uh, didn't play all of last year. Hasn't played it all this year, so don't know what his game's at. But I think the Winnipeg Jets could potentially benefit from having a guy like Taves on their team.
That makes a lot of sense. And you know what? If he can still go, like it could be a real nice ad for one of these teams on the bottom six in that center role.
And only that, you get it for free. You just sign him. You don't have to
Yeah,
trade for him or anything. Like you can just be like, "Hey, here's a contract. I want to sign it and come play," and then boom.
yeah. As soon as he's saying like I want to come back, like why not sign him to at least a PTO? To go out,
Yeah,
see what he can do, get eyes on him first, because at worst you do nothing with it. At most you get a really good bottom to middle six center, and
or if even if you're a team, you don't even have to sign to a PTO. Like now that you know that, you know, the thought's kind of already out there that like he wants to come back and play. Why not just get in touch with him or his agent right now, and just be like, hey, if you ever want to just come out for a skate, if you just want to get back on the ice and kind of get in a team atmosphere, you're more than welcome to join our practices at any time. Just let us know when you're ready, and if you want to come out for a practice or two, jumping on some line rushes and whatnot, kind of try and maybe start getting that in his mind, being like, hey, when I'm, if you're Taves, you're like, oh, I'm kind of ready. It's like, hey, well, Winnipeg or Toronto or whoever, you know, has already offered for you to come join a practice and get some reps in. Like, it's not a bad starting place, honestly.
yeah, it makes a lot of sense why a lot of teams would do it. And I was very interested to hear your take on if they would want him in Chicago because, you know, obviously, captained them to 3 cups there. He has so much pedigree in that building. They're going to retire his number when he career at the end of his career. But
I
at the
think they
same
would
time,
love him back, but I think they're also like, it makes no sense to bring him back. It's just
yeah,
kind of weird now.
like you could bring him back for like leadership and a little bit of depth. I mean, Lord knows that team could use any kind of depth. But at the same time, they have done a very good job of, especially with all the Kyle Beach stuff that went on. They really want to, between that and the rebuild, just move on from everything that happened. We had our dynasty, awesome. Like they really wanted to clean house, bring in all new guys, and kind of build this new future, obviously centered around Bedard. So
yeah,
I was very interested on and I'm still interested to see, if they actually do want, whether he wants to or not, are they going to attempt to bring him in at all? Or
I don't think you
do they
should,
not
though,
want him at all?
honestly.
I
I
don't
think you
think they
just
need it.
avoid it because, again, to them it might not matter as much, but I do think it's kind of weird that, bringing him back now, but it's like you've already kind of moved on. You've got your new captain. You've kind of got your new core. And more than anything, you're Chicago, you need to suck this year. And, you don't want to run into that spot, right, where you look at it last year and it's like, if Peter Mrazek didn't stand on his head for a couple of games, they would have finished last. They'd have Bedard and Celebrini. Having Bedard is great, but outside of him, you don't have. I mean, you've got Levchinov obviously on the blue line, but in terms of forwards, you've got some good prospects, but you don't really have that other elite level guy. You want to get you want to go and get the Kane to go with your Taves.
I was gonna. They've
to
got
go with
the
Bedard.
Taves. Now they need the Kane.
So
Bedard
you're already
plays a
last
little
in the
more like
league.
Kane, but
you're in a good spot to just keep riding it out. Hopefully you get the first overall pick if you're Chicago, and you can get that other game-breaking talent with Bedard. And if not, at least you're still getting a top 3 pick, so you can ensure you're getting one of the top 4 guys that are going to go in the draft. And Taves, again, don't know where he's at, but if he bumps you up a tier or two, a couple places in the standings, and you miss out on one of those guys, that's going to really hurt the team long term.
Yeah. And you know what? They would love to get a guy like James Higgins or something up front.
Especially after how he's playing the World Juniors. Fuck. I think he's for sure going first overall now as well.
Yeah. Yeah. The injury to Schaefer, I think, basically has to at this point. He was the guy most people thought was going first, and then he had a good World Juniors. He would have to piss off some people at this point to not.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, I'm right there with you. But for Taves, I would love to see him back in the league. And again, I think Winnipeg. I would love to see that. I think that would just be cool. That'd be awesome.
If I'm perfectly honest,
I'd be all on board.
I don't know if he can play for Winnipeg. These guys, these elite players, these borderline these franchise players, they have that ability to bounce back, but at his age, the amount of hockey he's missed over the past 3-4 years, I don't know. I feel like he's going to have to go to a team that lacks a little depth to be able to make it in there. I could be completely wrong. Maybe he comes back and puts up 70 points and plays Selke level defense, but I imagine especially the foot speed, I imagine he's probably lost a good bit. I don't know.
I think if he comes back, I do think it's
at all.
It's for a bottom 6 center role, probably, yeah.
But there's even guys, a guy in Tampa who's he's got all the makings of a middle to hell, probably top 6 forward, but his skating, Cam Atkinson cannot keep up, and he is struggling to not be a scratch a lot of nights because his shot looks so good, but man, he's slow, and age comes for us all, and I have genuinely no idea if he's practiced in that time off, if he was still skating, still doing workouts, or if he's just completely fell to the wayside while he took care of whatever health stuff he needed to do. But if he can make that comeback and he could come back and play those third line minutes, I would have nothing but respect for that, because doing it at his age and doing it with that much time off is nothing short of astounding.
Yeah, especially when you, again, we talk about it's a year and a half, but you think about how much the game's grown in that year and a half to try and kind of come back is.
Yeah, the game's also got faster.
It would be tough. But again, a guy like Jonathan Toews, just I still think he can. Again, we're coming from this, we don't know anything about, where his playing level's at, if he's, getting on the ice 3 or 4 times a week, or if it's once a week. We got no idea. But if you're debating between him or some other guys, I have more faith in Jonathan Toews able to bounce back and carve out another 2 or 3 years in this league as opposed to some other guys. But I guess we'll kind of have to just wait on that, as it doesn't sound like anything's immediately happening. That's just kind of floating out there.
Yeah, he's kind of put out that he wants to come back, but he didn't say, like, I'm looking for a team right now or anything.
Exactly, yeah.
He's kind of testing the waters, I think, and he's probably seeing if any of those teams are going to give him an offer. To come do a tryout, do some practices, stuff like that. So I guess we'll see if that goes anywhere, and maybe he signs somewhere before the playoffs.
Yeah, because the deadline to sign is you would have to sign by the trade deadline, whatever day that is at the 4 p.m. or the 3 p.m. deadline or whatever it is would have to be signed by then. So we'll keep an eye on it, though. That idea's floating out there now, so something to keep tabs on, though, for us for sure.
Moving on, we've got. It's the only other thing. I think you have something that we'll do at the end here.
I got a little fun thing at the end for us, but
the only other bit of news to talk about, I guess, is the Vancouver Canucks. We've already talked a bit about it on the podcast about the JT Miller versus Elise Pettersson saga, and a lot of it has come with a lot of we don't know, nothing's confirmed. And as far as I'm aware, we're still kind of in that phase, but we have gotten a little bit more insight into some of it. One thing that we did get was Brad Richardson, a former Canuck who played with both JT Miller and Elise Pettersson, spoke briefly on the matter. I'm not sure if it was on like the 32 Thoughts podcast or wherever, but I got some quotes here, but this is a pretty good excerpt that seems to sum up some of the stuff that kind of makes a lot of sense with what some of the other rumors we were talking about. So this is Brad Richardson saying, I love JT. He's a fucking animal. But I even told him, you're too hard on the kid. You're too hard on him. I know you're saying exactly what I think, but he's a kid that doesn't take. When you're on him, he's going to shut down. I told him, hey, you're going to lose this guy if you keep doing this. And that's what I said to him. And he goes on to say, JT is absolutely the man, but there's a lot of tension, and something's going to give. You're not going to love every guy on your team. It helps, but something's got to give there. So that makes a lot of sense, kind of with a lot of the rumors that's been going on. JT Miller is incredibly competitive, and Richardson played with them quite a few seasons ago at this point, so it sounds like for a while now, Miller's really been pushing Pettersson, and I guess almost a Tortorella type situation where one guy's really trying to push the other guy, and some guys pressures creates diamonds, but some guys it just makes them crumble. It doesn't work that way, and maybe Pettersson's just had enough, and now he's pushing back, or hell, maybe some other guys are upset about it, but. It sounds like it stems from Miller just being too hard on him, at least in what Brad Richardson saw a few years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's obviously from what's kind of coming out, it's kind of sounding more and more like there is kind of a rift. Again, like nothing hard confirmed, but. This does come from Elliot Friedman, though, and the Canucks are not actively, shopping Miller or Pettersson, but it does sound like they are listening to offers on either one of them due to the stress of the situation spilling over to other parts of the organization, and both Quinn Hughes and Rick Tocchet are tired of it.
Wow.
So, I mean, it sounds like it's gotten to the point where whether or not everything we're hearing is exactly true. There's enough smoke going on to the point where it's starting to become a distraction within the organization, and people are just getting tired of it.
And
So I don't fully know where the team goes. Obviously, I still do believe that, if you are trading either one of them, I think you're probably going to lose the trade. Maybe not in the long term, because you can never tell long term. Like, lots of trades look like a loss for a team. You look at them 5 years and you're like, wow, what a great deal for them. Um, but in terms of the Canucks and their mindset of winning now with the team that they have, and where, the high level that guys like Quinn Hughes is playing at, um, Quinn Hughes basically, you're not going to get better right now, and the team's definitely going to take a step back. So it's like where do you go? Like what do you do at this point? Honestly,
I at this point, I don't know if everything we've heard is fully true, and we don't know the situation. At this point, I fully believe that this is real. There is a rift
I do
between the
too.
two.
At this
I
point now,
think
yeah.
it's becoming almost undeniable with the amount of people coming out with like good sources, like a guy who played with both of them for an extended time, saying stuff like that is a lot more than rumors that came from, I don't know, somewhere close to the team.
Yeah.
But I do think at this point, if they can't, because that was from several years ago. If this is still going on, I think it's pretty hard to fix it. I think you probably do
If
need
it's
to
real, it's beyond
try.
repair, I think.
Yeah, and that's when I think unfortunately you probably do have to move one, and um, I do think that they they just need to find the best trade that they can for either of them. I think it's a lot better for the team if it is Miller, just because Miller is a guy who's been linked to having issues with people in the past, and he also left earlier this season for personal reasons with the NHL Player Assistance Program. Uh, it it just sounds like he's I don't even know if hothead is the right word for it, but
I
almost
think
too
the first way to say
passionate
it
for
is
his own
he's
good.
passionate.
Yeah,
Yeah, and sometimes it just rubs guys the wrong ways. It's the same ways how um our favorite player to ever play the game, Joe Thornton, he's very well known for having, a more goofy kind of outgoing personality and attitude. And it was never confirmed, but it kind of sounds like it wasn't perceived the best amongst some guys in Boston. But in San Jose, every teammate he ever had there loved him, right? So maybe just JT Miller's passion and his drive to, you know, be the best that he can and hold his teammates accountable maybe doesn't fly with, what's going on in Vancouver, but you put him on another team and it could work perfectly. Maybe a Buffalo. Maybe that's exactly what a Buffalo would need. A passionate guy that gives 110% and holds people accountable. Like,
100-point
not
passionate guy
like
as
not
well.
not not saying it would like necessarily work in Buffalo, but different situations and different environments can reflect that. And more than anything, he is 5 years older than Pedersen. Like, Miller is 31. He
I
does
think
have a
that's
no
one of
move.
yeah,
Um, so Pedersen, like 5 years. That's in the NHL. That's, especially nowadays, like, that's a pretty big gap right there to be like, all right, yeah, Miller's got to be the one to go.
yeah.
Just on that alone. Um,
Just a lot of guys they play their best game when they're just feeling good. They're having a good time and they're going out there kicking ass. And some guys they do their best when they're focused and then pissed off. And you sit there and you poke the bear and they go out and they get pissed off and they score a hat trick because of sheer anger. Like some guys do that, but some absolutely do not. And you just have two star players that are big personalities on the opposite end of that spectrum. And unfortunately, I do think Miller is definitely the right choice in which one should go. They would be hard pressed to find a deal similar to almost the Pierre Luc Dubois deal, where like if you could get the right pieces back, you could still retool it on the fly. You don't have to worry about this season. You're still going to be going good.
mhm.
Like they need to be worried. They don't need to be worried about how good he does wherever he goes. They need to be worried about the return and does it fit for them. And if they can find someone who's willing to pay, a good price like that for him, and they could get, either one big piece to replace him or several accompanying pieces to give them a lot of depth and hope that, once he's gone, Pedersen turns it around, and then you've got Besser and Hughes. If you have all that depth with them, Like
Yeah.
we've said it before on the podcast. This Canucks team, they were like one goal from beating the Oilers, who were also one goal away from winning the cup. They were really close last year. They were doing that on a third string goalie as well.
Yeah.
Like this team's not far off from being a very serious contender. So if they can get the right pieces back and get the vibes back, I really like their chances this year. It's not a great situation, but it's not, it is so far from unsalvageable.
Yeah. So this comes from Stefan Rosner, who is a Islanders reporter. He asked Islanders forward Bo Horvat if he would love for the Islanders to make a move for Elias Pettersson. And Horvat said, "Oh God, yeah, I've had a lot of great success with him too in the past, but yeah, if I get a chance to play with him again, I would love to. We could use him." So obviously, there. I think if a guy like Pettersson became available, there'd be interest amongst like almost every team. It is worth noting that
be checking in on it, like
and it is worth noting that obviously, there is a bit of a history between the Canucks and the Islanders, as the Islanders were the team that made the move for Bo Horvat. It was very critical for Vancouver to get that first round pick, so they could go out and they could get Filip Hronek, who was high on their list, but they didn't want to move their own first round pick. And there is rumors that the Vancouver Canucks are interested in Brock Nelson, who is a pending UFA. So I think if the Canucks were to make a move for a guy like Brock Nelson, obviously there would have to be an extension included with that trade. They apparently are also interested in Casey Cizikas, who has a contract of $2.5 million for 2 years left. No trade protection, and apparently Rick Tocchet really likes the kind of player he is. And it also sounds like Vancouver is really interested in potentially acquiring Noah Dobson. So
that might cost a pretty penny, but I guess if you're moving a guy like Miller,
no Pettersson.
Oh, right. Sorry for Pettersson.
This would be for Pettersson. So again, like who knows? But it's worth noting that like there is interest from both sides, and there's a history between them. It also makes you wonder if potentially the Rangers are a team that could be interested in either a Miller or a Pettersson, as their team that might be looking to try and kind of shake things up there quite a bit, given the status of them, and they've got not super intriguing piece, but they got some. Like the Rangers always find a way to make a deal work. So again, like they're not actively shopping either one, but it sounds like they are listening to offers on either one, and basically I kind of think if they get a deal for either one of them that they're like that's too good to pass up, they're going to pull their trigger regardless of which one it is that's getting moved.
Right.
But I think the Islanders could be a team that could be after Pettersson. I think the Rangers are a team that could be looking at either one of them. Is the Rangers love bringing in any big name. They already kind of know JT Miller a bit, and again, more than anything, if there's a big name out there, that Vegas and the Rangers are in on it. And if I'm Vancouver, I'm not trading either one to Vegas, because not only a divisional team, but probably a team you're going to have to play in the playoffs.
Yeah, the last thing you want is Pettersson and Miller to be on opposite sides in the playoffs.
Of a playoff matchup. Yeah, like if you're trading one straight up, you got to move into the East. Like unless you get an offer that is like people are going to be like, wow, the Canucks fleeced them.
Yeah.
I don't think you move either one to a team in the West.
Yeah. Like honestly, I'd really like the Islanders as a trade partner for them. If I'm perfectly honest, partially because I do think that their general manager is one of the more prone to getting fleeced GMs in the league. I
wouldn't say so. He doesn't really make any trades. That's the thing.
Well, that's the thing. Like, people loved the narrative a few years ago of the Islanders are boring, right? On the ice, I do not think that is any longer the case. As far as the office goes, As far as the office goes, they're definitely the most boring. Look at their cap wages, man. They have moved out their 2026 second rounder. That's it. They have all their picks. They have no extra picks. That is it. Like it is a
Yeah.
default team with one random pick missing. And
Yeah.
they don't go out, like they're always the last team to do things in free agency, if anything. Uh yeah, and you know that they love that, they don't have Barry Trotz there anymore, but they still do love that defensive style first. And Noah Dobson, very good offensively, not great defensively.
He is awful defensively.
If you can get him on a team with a guy like Quinn Hughes, if Quinn Hughes can help him become good, average, league average defensively, and put up 60 points on the blue line, and have that be a second line guy when Quinn Hughes is rocking out on the first, like that could be monstrous for Vancouver. So, if you're getting that, and maybe you also get a Brock Nelson because it's in his last year, and then you're giving up a Pettersson, and if you need to give up more, maybe
Like
a something, but
the actually, let me see if I have it here, because Stefan Rosen, he put together a mock trade thing with the Islanders and Vancouver. I don't. I think Vancouver says no to this. I think they might say yes because of the possibility of what you could maybe have in Noah Dobson. But it's basically the Islanders get Elias Pettersson, who's making $11.6 million this year. Vancouver gets Noah Dobson, who's making $4 million this year. Casey Cizikas, who's making 2.5, and Pierre Engvall, who's making $3 million. I don't know why Pierre Engvall. Apparently, Vancouver might be interested in him. I think they need to stay away from him, as they don't need another bad contract on their hand. Along with a 2025 first round pick. So I think along the lines of something like that, you could get something done. Again, obviously Pierre Engvall's in there because you need to make the money work. I think you find another way.
Oh, 100%. Like the last thing Vancouver needs is to be that team again. For better part of a decade.
You finally just got out of that.
They were a team that, they were 5 years later. They still have several bad contracts that they signed. Engvall is at 6 years left on his contract. Somehow he got a modified no trade on that. And is he making 1.85 mil, or is that half of it because it's his buried penalty?
He's making 3 mil even.
Yeah, he's making 3 mil for the next 7 years. He's 28. He's currently in the minors, by the way. He's not even playing for them.
I think he's back up with the Isles now.
Oh, okay.
He's kind of been up and down. He's cleared waivers already, so they have the free reins to send him up and down as much as they want. But I think, if you're the Islanders, you're getting Pettersson, something along the lines of Dobson, Cizikas, and a first-round pick in this upcoming draft. It's in the ballpark. I don't think it's maybe exactly enough.
Be a little movings, but I think that's
that's the groundwork for it. Yeah, I think you could maybe get something done with that.
And because honestly, I would prefer, if I'm a Canucks fan, I would prefer moving JT Miller over Pettersson.
100%.
At the same time, Pettersson has not been consistent. He's had issues at different times scoring. We know what his ceiling is. He could be a top 5 player in the league legitimately. But we have not consistently seen that for even a full season. And you've got him for 8 more years at $11.6 million. If he reaches that level, he can. That's a great contract. He doesn't even have a no move. He's got no trade protection. So even that adds to it. But if he stays at a good two-way player hitting 80-ish points, 11.6 is not that's not great. That's too much money for not enough production. So,
and it is worth noting that, very similar to what we saw with the Pierre-Luc Dubois deal when he went to LA, Pettersson has no clause this year, but as of July 1st, it kicks into a full no movement clause for the remainder of the contract.
Oh, he does.
So I'm wondering, like, Vancouver put that in to kind of give themselves, like, if this doesn't work out, they have the ability to get out of it. Very similar to what LA did with Pierre-Luc Dubois, which is why they were able to move him
Yeah,
when it already started to feel like he was unmovable. So,
that
it
that's
makes you
even with
wonder, like,
that's even what Tampa did with Sergachev. They traded him like 4 days
yeah,
before his no trade clause kicked in for the next 7 or 8 years. So it wouldn't be the first time we've seen something like that. And Pettersson definitely has the higher upside, but he's 3.6 mil more expensive, and like I don't foresee that being an albatross. But if you're getting a
yeah,
ton of
no,
great value back, and it helps get rid of him knowing that you're freeing up a lot of cap space for a lot of time. Uh, you know, you don't know if he's ever going to reach that peak because he reaches it like for games at a time, not seasons.
yeah. Well, and if you trade Miller and things don't turn around for Pettersson, like you said, if you trade Miller and Pettersson's still like that, good 2-way 80-point guy, now you're sitting there like, well, fuck, now what? Right? Like
Yeah,
the whole point of trading Miller is you're hoping it gets Pettersson back up to what he can be. And I mean, even again, like they've even been interested in Brock Nelson. Like if you get, you know, Dobson and Nelson, both pending free agents. Dobson is an RFA. If you get both of them and you can lock Nelson in on I don't know, a 4-year deal, you get Dobson locked in on an 8-year deal, and you get a second round pick, second and a third, 2 seconds or something. I don't know if maybe Islanders would do a first if they're moving Nelson and Dobson. But like right there, then that makes your blue line better for the Canucks. You get Dobson on the right side with Hronik. You get Brock Nelson, who's you're going to get at least 30 tucks out of him a year. He can replace Pettersson in terms of being a top 6 center.
like
Again, I think the Canucks should move Miller, but I think if you get a deal that's too good for Pettersson, I don't hate the idea of maybe pulling the trigger.
Miller does have that no move clause, so
Yeah. So
that
really
doesn't
would
mean
come
he
down to,
can't be
is
moved.
Miller willing to? Yeah, he
But
can't. He would have to act. They'd have to come to him and be like, "Hey, we've got a deal to send you here. Are you willing to waive it to go there?" And then he
so
either says yay or nay.
you need to
Was
find
Pettersson, you can move him anytime you want. You don't even
yeah,
have to ask him.
yeah, they have to find a deal that's worth it for them that the other team will do, and they need Miller to be okay going to that team.
Yeah,
So it'll
exactly.
be tougher, but
You got to
there's
explore
there's
that
good
option first, I
yeah,
think.
and there's good teams out there that are willing to trade for him. I'm sure
Oh yeah.
for the right price, the Rangers would definitely take a guy like Miller.
If I'm
So
JT Miller, do I want to go back to New York though? Do I want to go back to the Rangers? Get them where they're at? I don't know if I would.
uh, I don't. You know what? It's funny because the Rangers and the Canucks are not too dissimilar. They're both heavily underperforming what they should be right now. Very talented teams doing okay at best. Rangers are doing bad actually. So like it. Yeah, I don't know. But at the same time, Miller, he might look at that team and go, they got Shesterkin. I'd probably be playing up top with Panarin. Like they,
Yeah, that's true.
you know, it's clearly a good team, and I don't think they're gonna just storm towards a rebuild. They just need to pick up their play. The vibes need to be back on track, and you know what? If he thinks he's the guy who can go in there and make that happen, yeah.
Yeah,
And there's a lot of guys there who want to win. So you know what? Maybe that's exactly what Miller wants. He wants to go somewhere where the guys feel more motivated. So maybe it'd be a perfect fit.
yeah. I think there's definitely the possibility for that for sure. But yeah, again, we'll
That's
probably be
all I
talking about
got.
the Canucks again next week, as it seems the story just keeps on growing, and it's the story that keeps on giving here.
I believe you said you had something for the end of the episode, correct?
I do. Yes, this is going back. We're going to go back a couple days here to the year of 2024.
Sick.
I've got a list here. It is a little bit of goalie love to wrap this episode up.
You
Um,
love it.
I've got the top 10 goalies Minimum 45 games played, which is important. The best save percentages in the calendar year of 2024. I want to see how many you can get here
Calendar
in
year.
the top 10.
Does that count playoffs?
Yep, it just counts any games played in the calendar year.
Okay.
So from January 1st to December 31st, any games in there, minimum 45 games played, just save percentage only.
Save percentage only. All right. Well, first, I'm going Connor Hellebuck.
Connor Hellebuck is by far the number one with a 926 on the calendar year.
Unreal. 45 games played. He might have gotten there. I'm going to go Shesterkin first.
Igor Shesterkin is tied for 6 with a 910.
The 910. Let's go with a Philip Gustafsson.
Philip Gustafsson is tied for 6, along with Igor Shesterkin at a 910.
Pretty nice. I'm trying to think of how many games he played. Did he play enough games?
You're 3 for 3 so far. You're on a heater.
I want to say Joseph Wool, but I don't think he's on there. I don't think he played enough games. Let's go Sergei Bobrovsky. He almost won the Conn Smythe.
Sergei Bobrovsky is not on the list.
He's not. I mean, I know he was injured last year, so his numbers took a hit when he came back, but I'm going to go with Vasilevsky.
Andrei Vasilevsky is not on the list.
Thatcher Demko had a very good 2024.
Thatcher Demko is not on the list, and I believe for him it is due to he did not reach the 45 games played.
Yeah, games played. Like, there's a huge discrepancy of quality goalies in the league right now. It gets harder way quicker than it used to. UC Saros.
UC Saros is not on the list.
Wow. Sorokin?
Yeah. No Sorokin.
Like, is it a bunch of bums or?
No, there's still some.
Linus Ullmark?
Linus Ullmark is second with a 915.
I don't know if he would. Jeremy Swayman?
Jeremy Swayman is not on the list.
How many am I missing? I need like 5 left, right?
You're missing 3, 4, 5. One of the guys tied for 6, and then there's 2 guys tied for 9th.
Jeez, there's a couple left. I feel like there's probably at least like one big name I'm missing, but Jacob Markstrom.
Jacob Markstrom is one of the guys tied for 9th at a 909.
Mackenzie Blackwood. Let's give him the love.
Mackenzie Blackwood is 4th on the list with a 913.
Nice. I don't know if he's played enough games, but Dustin Wolf?
Dustin Wolf is unfortunately not on the list. Not enough games played.
I wasn't sure if he played much last year at all. Man, who else?
You got 1, 2. You got 4 left that we're searching for.
And Aiden Hill.
Aiden Hill is not on the list.
Oh, Charlie Lindgren.
Charlie Lindgren is not on the list.
Oh, come on.
He's unfortunately not on the list.
Jeez. This is getting pretty tough. Like, I'm struggling to even think of names, less alone guys that it would be.
I think there's one on here still that I would get. The other 3 is kind of tough because I wouldn't have expected them to be on here. But I think there's one still that you should get, and that is the guy in number 3.
Jake Ottinger.
Jake Ottinger, not on the list.
Jeez.
Sorry.
Dude, I can barely think of like other goaltenders. I don't know.
3 are Western Conference goalies. 1 is an Eastern Conference goalie.
Logan Thompson?
Logan Thompson is not on the list.
Western. I don't even know who's in net anymore for the Kings. Lucas Dostal?
Lucas Dostal is one of the goalies. He's tied with Jacob Markstrom down there at 9th with a 909.
Oh, he sneaks in.
You got 3 more. I'm surprised you haven't said your favorite goalie yet. Your best buddy you've yet to mention.
Oh,
which technically actually could be two goalies.
Joey Decord.
Joey Decord is third.
So good.
914.
914.
Brought in to be the backup, and he's turned out to be one of the better goalies over the last year.
I was saying that it was a good extension. People thought they were crazy over in Seattle, but he had a borderline Vezina finalist season last year.
You were one of the few that said it wasn't. You are looking like a genius now. You got two goalies left. One is a West, one is an East.
Karel Vejmelka.
No Vejmelka.
Oh,
not sure if he's played enough.
Yeah,
because he kind of lost it to Ingram last year, and Ingram was kind of the starter this year.
Yeah, I assume not Ingram.
No Ingram. Good goalie, but on a bad team.
Oh, can I get the divisions?
Atlantic and Central. I'll give you 3 final total guesses.
I mean,
actually, I'll give you 4. So you can get one wrong on either side.
There's no way that it was Georgiev. Like, there's just no way.
Yeah, don't even suggest that. I wouldn't even take that as an answer. That one is so bad. He probably had the worst. Or damn near the worst.
There was a while where he was the bottom person in our entire fantasy league because he had like minus 40 points or something.
Yeah, it was awful.
Like it was bad.
It really just showed how bad he was. 1 Central, 1 Atlantic. 2 strikes. Go for the perfect game. Jordan Binnington is 5th with a 911.
There we go.
Your buddy Binny.
Oh, yeah.
3 guesses left. 1 goalie to find. Can he do it? Can he pull it off?
One has to assume it's not in Buffalo. It's not. We already said Ullmark.
Already said Swayman. Already did Vasilevsky.
Has Anthony Stolarz played enough games?
I don't believe so.
Okay, I didn't think so. He'd totally be on the list if he played enough, though. Like
if he played enough,
last year. I think this and last year he's over a 920.
Yeah.
For both.
Yeah, it's not enough games played.
It can't be Merzlikins.
Is that a guess?
Yeah.
Because it shouldn't be, because that's Metro, so you would be wrong.
No, okay. Dude, I can't even remember where Columbus is, man. It's like...
you kind of skimmed across potentially listing this guy. Didn't quite say the name, but
on the Senators?
No. Is he? You already did Ullmark.
Korpisalo?
It is not Korpisalo.
Is it another goalie on the Sens? Because I actually don't know who
they
have.
No Sens involved.
Sam Montembeault.
It is not Sam Montembeault. You are down to 1 final guess.
Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen.
UPL. You got it. Tied for 6 with Gustafsson and Shesterkin at a 9-10.
Damn. They're even getting.
I was worried. You're like, surely it's not anyone on Buffalo. I was like, oh, you're going to say his name now. And then he just moved on. I'm like, no, go back.
Yeah.
Somehow Buffalo. That's crazy, though, when you look at it. Blackwood on a bad San Jose team, UPL on a bad Buffalo team, Dostal on a bad Ducks team, like all finding their way into the list here. It is minimum 45 games played, so like there are some good goals that probably do have much better numbers, but they didn't do it for 45 games.
Yeah. No, yeah, that's a decent benchmark over a calendar year, and a lot of
Connor Hellebuyck is clearly number 1 though, like by far.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of those guys, yeah, that they're very underrated. You know, they're on these bad teams, and they're making a lot of saves, and you know,
yeah.
Especially when the Ducks really get rolling, when their guys start to develop properly, like if Dostal can be a good goalie, they have so much talent up front and on the blue line. Like that could be a nasty squad.
That's huge for them to have Dostal. They already have, you know, again, like not confirmed he's going to be the guy going forward, but like logically he should be. I think he's proven that he should be the guy, and that's huge for them already with the, you know, the piece that they've already kind of got in and knowing like, hey, we've got our goalie. This is our our guy who's going to be a stud. Probably should be playing more this year, but I get like you got to try and bring up Gibson's trade value so you can move on from him. So Dostal can just be your clear number one.
They needed to try and trade him to the Avalanche when they had no goalie.
Yeah, I think it came down to his contract. But if I'm the Ducks, honestly, I would just eat some of that contract if it meant you could move on from him and just get something back for him. Like if I'm the Ducks, what San Jose got for Blackwood, if I had to retain $1 million or $1.5 million on Gibson, I would have done it.
Yeah,
probably. But you're a better team when Dostal's in net.
Yeah,
just like, get some pieces back and let them know, hey, you're our guy, and let's just start trying to win more games at this point now for the Ducks.
They really are at the point where they want to win games. They don't care to lose for another season and get another high pick. They've got so many. Like, they just need to start getting these guys to a winning culture, developing their skills. So,
like, realistically, if you're the Ducks, you're probably not coming out of the bottom 10. But, you know, I mean, obviously at this point now for them, it'd be super nice if where they're at, just fuck it, get one of the top 4 picks and get another player. But realistically, yeah, you want to be getting up into that where you're picking 9 or 10 or 8. Like, you want to start to be climbing the standings at this point now.
They probably want to be fighting for a wild card spot next season. Like, I don't know if they'll get it, but they want to be competing.
I think they're going to be. I think to the point
where Calgary is this year, kind of.
Yeah, like the Ducks, realistically, next year by 15 games left in the season, they're still in the hunt. It's not like the Ducks are out of it and they've already sold off at the deadline. Like next year, again, I don't think they make the playoffs next year, but they definitely should still be in the hunt. And coming down the stretch of the season, they should still be playing meaningful games. I think 100%.
Yeah.
And that will happen with Dostal in the net.
Yeah, he's so good. That was a good little bit of trivia there.
I'm glad I was able to find that one.
But I think that's all we got for this one, right?
That is everything we got for this episode. We can mosey on out of here and wrap up the first episode of 2025. No idea what's coming over the weekend. Obviously, we are back on our full-time regular schedule. We will be back Tuesday next week. Don't know what we'll be covering, but it'll probably just be more of the latest news and everything going on around the league. Is maybe some more craziness happens over the weekend now that the holiday break is wrapping up. Again, if you want to join on any of the hockey talk, if you want to let us know about your thoughts on Team Canada or thoughts on the World Juniors, or if you got any thoughts on the Canucks and mock trades for Miller or Pedersen, you can talk about any of that with us by clicking on any of the links in the description down below. You can find you can come to any of our socials there. They all are there, so you can pick whichever one you like. We do check all of them pretty frequently, so come by, come say hi, come talk hockey. And Braden, as always, final thoughts.
Jeez, we unpacked so many big ones between the World Juniors and the Canucks and the Stars. I don't even know. You know what? They've lost their last 2 games, but regardless, congrats to the Sabres. They had a 3-game win streak there after their big 13-loss streak.
They did.
So you know what? Good for them. And good for the Red Wings and Canadians, who are currently on 3-game win streaks right now.
And some of those Atlantic teams are finally starting to. We're seeing the glimpses of what we thought we were going to see when we were doing our kind of off-season reviews and previews for every team. So Atlantic's starting to heat up, which is exactly what we were expecting. Is a couple weeks ago they were overall the worst division in terms of points percentage. So good to see those teams starting to rally. But that will wrap up everything for this episode. Once again, we hope you guys all enjoyed, and we will see you guys out on the ice on Tuesday next week.